Hey guys, I am Pedro the Meat Mage.
And I'm Becky, aka Cosmic Empress.
And together we are
Party of Six.
All right. So what we're here to do is help give your game some flavor and keep them coming back for more with some delicious recipes and
lots of tips for you as players.
All right. So today what we're going to do is chicken fajitas. Chicken fajitas are an excellent dish for a group of people. They're actually fairly easy to make. But there's one step a lot of people get wrong when it comes to making fajitas, and that's going to be the preparation or the marinade, which reminds me what's something else a lot of people forget.
You forget to do game 0, which is preparation that you do before you start any campaign.
All right, guys, so I have a list of ingredients here. We are going to make this marinade.
So we're going to need a lot of lemon juice. So I'm going to be squeezing those while we talk about game 0. So the most important thing about a game 0 is discussing the commitment of what this game will entail. So every D&D game happens at a different frequency rate. What I mean by that is once a week, once a day, once a month, once a year. So if your DM wants to play once a week and you really can only do twice a month, you need to be upfront and say, hey, I can't join this D&D game. Or maybe you're like expecting once a week and the DM's like, I can only do this once a month, and you want to find a different game because of that. Now, you also need to know how long the game is going to last. 5 hours, 2 hours, things like this. So these are really important commitment topics that we need to know before we start any game. Also, what happens if you miss a game? So not everyone's going to be able to make it every time. What we do is a twinkling out system where the characters remember being there, but they weren't actually there. And the other players, while it's happening, they don't realize that character's missing. So it makes a really easy way for adults to get together when they can.
Yeah, so part of the, that makes the game a little bit tougher for the DM too, because they're prepared to have everybody there. Or they have to be able to plan, how many people are going to be at games. So you want to make sure you participate in as many games as possible. So make sure everybody understands how often you're going to be playing, how long you're going to be playing for. Also, you want to talk about how to handle the absence of a player. And Cosmic Empress talked about our solution in our game. So what else do you want to...
Well, who gets the final say on a rule?
Okay, so that's another
kind
important question about who gets final say on the rules. So that comes down to the DM. When you're going to be playing a game, the DM, the Dungeon Master, gets final say when it comes to all of the rules. Why? Sometimes it's going to be hard for everybody to come to an agreement. Or, you may want to talk about maybe if everybody gets to vote on it, but you have to figure out in game 0 how discussions and things are going to happen or how rulings are going to happen. Yeah. But the DM generally gets the final say. Mm-hmm. It is not necessarily a democracy.
Well,
I think our marinade is pretty much ready. So all we are going to do is I pre-mixed the dry ingredients. That's something you want to do so you don't get these weird little clumps, and make sure it spreads evenly. I'm going to put them in a bag, shake it up, and then we got this handy dandy lemon juicer. Mm-hmm. Mix up the marinade. We're probably going to need more for that. But this needs to sit for at least 1 hour. Up to 24 hours is ideal, but you want to let it at least sit for 1 hour. And let's switch spots. All right, guys, when you're handling poultry, follow the rules. The safest practice is just to use a dirty hand, one hand to touch meat with. And then
he means a clean hand, but it will be designated as the dirty hand.
Yes.
It's like how there's a game setting, like your hand is the designated hand, but you have a designated genre. Are you doing sci-fi? Are you doing classic fantasy, steampunk, modern? There's a lot of different game settings, and you need to talk about that in Game Zero. If you want to play in a sci-fi campaign and your dungeon master has written a classic fantasy, you may need to discuss about where this game is going.
Yeah. Also, if you want to play, if the group's decided on playing an evil campaign and you want to play a good campaign, you just want to make sure that what you want and need from the game is what they're presenting. You might need to find a different game or change what you were planning.
And as the dungeon master, when you invite a player to your game, you probably already know this. So when you say, hey, would you join my game? You should be like, hey, would you join my modern steampunk game and be interested in that? And have those kind of things already ready. So a Game Zero doesn't have to be everyone getting together, but these are Game Zero topics that you as a player need to know and the dungeon master needs to have decided before the game starts.
All right, so I think our marinade is pretty much good to go. I am going to wash my hands. We are going to mix this up. You just kind of want to squeeze it so the lemon juice and the chili powder and everything else just kind of gets all over. You know, it's going to be a happy little party there. That's going to sit in the fridge. We're going to leave it overnight, but you can do anywhere from an hour to 24 hours. And then we'll be back tomorrow with more delicious food, and we're going to continue Game Zero.
Yeah, looks like we got our ingredients ready, Pedro.
Yeah, we're all ready. We got the veggies cut, the chicken's marinated. It smells amazing, by the way.
It does. Do you know what the ingredients are like in D&D? They're kind of like the source material. They're the things that go into making a game.
A good dish. Yeah, there's certain things I will not allow in my fajitas. Tomatoes, one of them.
What? You're not going to put pico?
Later, but not. we disagree on tomatoes in cooking.
Yeah, we definitely do.
But
which is why you need to talk about it beforehand. So what is your source material? So that's going to be what books are allowed, what kind of magic you can do, if there's any additional rules or things that you want to take out from the rules already.
Yeah, and yeah, that's really important, especially for like new players who might not have access to a lot of the source material. You're going to be turning to things on the internet. And a lot of things on the internet are going to be homebrewed, which might not be allowed by your DM. So
So a lot of homebrew content is really overpowered, and I would not allow most of it into my game unless I specifically put it in there for the players.
Yep. Speaking of overpowered, this would probably be a good time to talk about the Tasha's.
Oh, yeah. So Tasha's Book of Everything has some really interesting rules coming out. It really opens up what you can do with your classes and could possibly make the Artificer a little bit too strong. So you may or may not want to add this to your game. A traditional D&D player understands, like, when you go into this game, if you want to maximize your intelligence or something, you need to pick a particular race to do that. Now, it may open up and be like, oh, we could do any races, but but you also could end up with a new character that's completely overpowered because you can stack the racial attributes with that intelligence or charisma or whatever you're picking to do it, and it just becomes too crazy and everything's easy.
Yeah, it's at least for our game, it doesn't necessarily work. We discussed it in our last game. But I mean, maybe you're in a game where it could work. Again, it's just important to discuss it with your party. Open communication is key to doing it.
That is what Game Zero is really about, communication.
And let's see. So we are
now you have your source material. So now you're going to make a character.
Okay. This is the fun part. This is like where you're going to take your kind of basic ideas, kind of what you want to explore, and write it, put it on paper, and you're going to commit to that character. So what does that involve?
Well, from the Dungeon Master's point of view, you really need to know what alignment you're going to let this party have. They could all want to be evil, and that's fine. Set up a game that they can be evil. They may want to be all neutral. That's fine. Set up a game where they want to get money because that's what motivates neutral people. Or maybe they all want to be good, aligned, or scattered across the board. in which case motivating them can be a little bit more difficult, but you have to find what motivates each character in your party to go on this adventure. And alignment rules, or what you allow, can be really important in being able to motivate them.
Mm-hmm. And it creates a lot of fun dynamic when you play your alignments. My character is chaotic neutral, but he's not motivated by money. He's motivated by pie.
And rotten pies.
Yeah. He'll use rotten pies as a weapon. It's amazing.
Yeah. The other thing is you really need to know if you're going to do a point buy or a rolling system for your stats. If you do rolls, some characters could be really weak, could be really overpowered. So I really prefer the point buy so that it's fair for everyone. And then other little DM things you need to think about is everybody going to go on with experience or milestones to level up? So you want to think about those kind of things.
Yep. And all of this, once you guys come into an agreement, just use it for the game, and it's a lot of fun. Just get everything established. That way you can try to avoid disputes and things like that in the future, or at least have a way to handle any disputes, things like that. But I think we're ready to cook.
I think we're ready.
Okay. We'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so we got our pans nice and hot. You want to make sure that when you drop the meat on, you hear a little bit of a sizzle. That's when you know your pan is ready. This video is obviously sped up, but we are going to be cooking our chicken for about 6 to 8 minutes on each side. It just kind of depends on the pan you're using and your stove, but we want these over a medium-high heat. This is a fairly quick cook. With our vegetables, we just have onions and bell pepper. Traditionally, that's usually what it is. You can add jalapenos or something like that. It's going to give it a little bit more kick. Now, with chicken, if you're not super experienced with this, you're going to want to use a thermometer. A digital probe thermometer is going to be your safest bet. We want to get the chicken breast up to 165 degrees. That makes it safe. You don't want to cook it too much more than that. It's going to dry it out, and that's not very tasty chicken. 165, you'll be safe, and it'll still be a little bit juicy for you. And with the vegetables, we're just going to be cooking these until we get a nice caramel color. We're just going to start. We still want these a little bit crunchy when you bite into it, so we're not going to cook them a whole lot more. But everything looks like it's done.
Everything's cooked.
Yeah, we got delicious fajitas.
And look what I made for you.
Oh, some nice pico de gallo.
Yeah.
We'll show you guys how to make that in a different video.
In a future video.
We'll
so make sure to subscribe so you can learn how to make some pico.
Yep. We got the
veggies.
Sauteed veggies, essentially.
We have the sauteed veggies that are left over.
Let's go ahead and cut these up. And while I'm cutting them,
why don't I talk about character backstories and why they're important to the Dungeon Master in Game Zero? So every game starts and you have to construe some weird circumstance to bring your players together. And usually this just happens at a bar, which is a little tropey at this point. So if your players can maybe come up with something interesting as to how they know each other and why they're traveling together already, that's really helpful. And that's something you as players can be like, oh yeah, my character knows you because of this. Frank, who is Pedro's character, knows Malik, who is our rogue, because they started, you were gambling down in Under Talon's Gate.
Yeah.
And ran into Malik, and he looked like he was just always getting into trouble and causing adventures. And Frank was like, I want to travel with you because you cause trouble, basically. And that's how they got to know each other and started traveling together. So those kind of cool little interactions for the characters really come together when you have a Game Zero and you're together and you're talking about this and you're like, oh, my character knows this and that. So another thing is what your character's goals are in life and what motivates them. So this is really important to the dungeon master because they need to know why would your character go on this adventure. If you're trying to help an old lady protect her caravan over to the next city, but you're not interested in that because you're just trying to win the love of your life back, why are you going on this adventure? So these are important things like, what is the story kind of going to be about? Maybe you can drop some hints, Dungeon Master, and then the players can write appropriate backstories to go on this adventure. I think the best one we have in any of the characters that we use is that they are all treasure hunters on the same boat and work for the same company. So they're already all together. They know exactly what they're trying to do, and they know exactly what kind of game they're expecting. They're going to go after treasures.
Yep. And adventure. So,
and adventure.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, important for the story, and it'll help you make decisions in the game if you have a fully developed background. So it'll make the game a lot more rewarding for you, and you're going to have an easier time playing if you understand where your character comes from.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And
so, speaking of players, though, there's one last thing. As a player, you're getting told a lot of information from your dungeon master, but you actually have your own expectations. So you may want something that's a little bit more heavy in roleplay, more into traps or puzzles or monsters. Do you want something that's almost always a deadly encounter? So these are things you need to voice to your dungeon master during Game Zero so they can plan for those things to be in the game.
Yep. Yeah, like we let you know that Malik and Frank both knew each other, and we kind of gave you the background, and you were able to write in a story based on that. I mean, we're always getting into trouble because of our background. My favorite is when we got stabbed by little children assassins.
Children adults. They looked like children's, but they also looked like adults at the same time.
They just had a stabby stab moment.
Yeah. They were trying to assassinate you.
All right, and to top everything off,
this is like the biggest fajita I've ever had.
Yeah, we got pico de gallo, but I think we talk about the goals yet, or yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think that's a wrap.
I'm ready to eat this.
All right, let's go ahead and see how our food came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's really good, guys. So.
Come for the food.
Stay for the game, guys.
You know what? It's time to
roll initiative.